So we've just finished our problem definition phase of the course, and we're moving into gathering information, which is going to be a set of 3 lectures, the first on teamwork, the second on patents and benchmarking, and the third on customer data discovery. And so this first lecture on teamwork isn't necessarily related to the gather information phase, but it's an essential part of the course and any engineering design team you'll be on to make sure that you have a common understanding among everyone on your team. Everybody knows expectations and what they're going to contribute. And so you can have a smooth process of creating your design and then building your design in design 2. And so on team management, there's a lot of different ways that you can go about working together and leading different aspects of the project. And really in this course, one of the biggest things that's going to make you succeed or fail or enjoy the course or really not enjoy the course is going to be how well you get along with your teammates and how well you work together and accomplish your goals. So it's really important to take some time right now before you get further into your projects to really get to know your teammates and know what their expectations are on the projects and what you want to get out of the course. So part of having a good team is keeping up your own personal responsibility for being a good team member. So when you're working with others, you need to make sure you have a good attitude and keep to good work habits. And so these can consist of things like taking responsibility for the success of the team. So you don't blame, others on the team for not getting their things done. You should try to help everybody and adjust the team goals based on different people's strengths. You should be a person who delivers to commitments. So you want to make sure if there's a certain deadline that each individual person is meeting their deadline and then the team as a whole does as well. You should contribute to team discussions. So you shouldn't sit, passively and let other people take control of the project. It's important for everybody to contribute because part of being a team is everybody has their own unique perspective and skills that's going to make it a better project overall than if everybody was working in isolation. You should give your full attention to who's speaking. And so this can be very difficult for some people, for a lot of people, especially in design, because you're very excited about your own ideas and your own opinion. And everybody, to some extent, has a self-bias to thinking their ideas might be better or more exciting than others. So you really want to speak, but it's important that you listen to your teammates. And even at some points in design team meetings, you can have rules like one person speaks at a time and everybody has a chance to speak for 30 seconds. And then you go into a group discussion that's a little less informal just to make sure everybody gets their point across. And so developing techniques for getting your message across is important too. So being concise is important. Maybe communicating through email is better than communicating in person for some people. And so it's important to figure out what works for you and also what works for your teammates as well. So beyond your individual responsibility to your team, there's characteristics of the team as a whole that can make you more or less effective. So one thing is the team goals should be as important as individual goals. There should be some kind of compromise in, you as an individual probably aren't going to get everything your way, but if the team is completely ignoring, certain individuals, that's going to cause problems in the long term. So a lot of times it's good to make sure everybody forms a consensus on certain decisions before moving forward. It's important that everybody understands the goals and is committed. And so that's also why it's important that the team goals align with the individual goals. You should try to trust your teammates and build that trust and be comfortable taking risks because good design, requires some risk taking to be innovative. Respect, collaboration, and open-mindedness are prevalent in effective teams. So you should always be, you can be informal and you can be friends, but you should also keep a professional relationship with each other throughout these projects. Team members should be free to communicate. The diversity of opinion should be encouraged, but it should also be important that everybody does converge on a shared vision in the end, and that you have acceptance and support of all team members when moving forward. So the way we do teams in this class mirrors business world teams in a lot of ways, and then differs in some ways as well. So here, students are generally the same age and level of formal education, whereas when you get out into the business world, you might have somebody more senior on your team that takes more form of a leadership. Whereas here, team members don't really have authority over one another. And so a lot of times student teams prefer to work without a designated leader. And so I set up the class where you can work without a designated leader, and I encourage everybody to contribute. And you need to lead through your presentations at least once through the semester. I can always step in as an authority figure to help you come to certain agreements, or talk things out if you're having difficulty managing your team, or there's some disagreements. But otherwise, your teams are how you want to set it up, and I'm not going to step in and make decisions for your team, because it's important for you as professional engineers to be able to come up with these plans and make decisions with respect to your projects on your own. One of the most important things you're going to need to do as a team is manage your time. If you spend a class period not moving forward, you're not going to get that class period back. And as the semester goes on, you're going to get busier with other courses. So whenever there's time set aside to, do customer discovery or do benchmarking, you should use that class time or that week to get that part of the project done, because otherwise, you can fall behind, and then you have to do everything that week and the previous weeks at once, which is going to turn into sloppy design, and you might not get certain things done. And so this is something that, a practicing engineer is going to have a lot of responsibility. You go to your workplace, you're expected to do things at a certain time, and that's just part of your job responsibility. So you need to practice it now in your design team so that you're ready and moving forward, what works and doesn't work for you. There's a difference between effectiveness and efficiency. Effectiveness means doing the right things. Efficiency means doing those in the right way in the shortest possible time. So you can be very effective, make very good decisions, but if you take the whole semester to make one decision, that's not very efficient. Whereas if you make really quick decisions and you find out that you didn't do enough research on your project, or think about a mechanism and you have to go back to the drawing board and move back in your project, that's not very efficient because you're not doing things in the right way. So our class moves at a fairly fast and steady pace, and the later stages rely on what you're doing now. So it's important that you take these tasks and phases seriously now, so you're not trying to do the entire project and report the last 2 weeks of class. And so in order to do this, you have so many members on your team, and you need to divide the tasks effectively. So I'm going to provide time for you in class to really talk about your teams and how you want to manage, so that you can establish rules going forward and expectations moving forward. I really recommend, even a formal contract to write and say, this is, our goals as a team. This is the expectations, the amount of hours or effort people are to place on the team, and then have everybody sign it so that everybody makes some kind of commitment to the team and everybody's on the same page. And maybe these time commitments are different for different people. So everybody in the class should be treating this as, a 3-hour course that requires about 6 hours of time outside of class, as any 3-hour course would take, is recommended to take at Texas Tech. And, beyond that, some people might be really invested in their product and want to make, their design into the best thing possible, or prototype it for something they plan to do after university or intellectual property, and so they can work more on the project. And it's also important, if people want to do that and they have expectations for what they want to do with the project outside the scope of the class, but that's communicated with everybody within the class so that you don't run into disagreements or unmet expectations later in the course. And I can help you manage those and answer any questions you might have about this. So when you're talking about your teams and what you want to do, you should talk about the goal for your team and your project outcome. What is going to be your criteria for success? Is it passing the class? Is it having a product that is usable? Is it making a proof of concept? You should have objective project goals so you can always fall back to. So whenever you have disagreements and you have biases come into play, you can go to something that's more black and white and say, what decision is going to be best based on the goals we wrote earlier in the semester. So expectations for meeting and communication, how often you want to meet, if email is expected, if Zoom is expected or something else, if you have positive or negative reinforcements for behaviors, how work is going to be divided, your strategy for presentations and question and answer sessions, what's important for having a happy and successful team culture, how are you going to make decisions, is it going to be unanimous, do you have certain people in charge of certain subsystems, and then what's going to be the time commitments as well. So that is it for the teamwork lecture. And like I said, you'll have time in class to work with your teams to come up with, your plan that's going to be different for every team. And you don't have to share this with me or the class, but I'm happy to talk with you and help you figure out rules that will help you be successful.